In this video, we will discuss how to compare strings in Java. Since strings are objects, we can't use the simple relational operators such as is equal to compare two strings. To understand why, let's take an example. In the first part of this demo, I create two strings s1 and s2 using the shorthand assignment statement of strings with the string literals. Both strings are pointing to the same word, hello. If I check their equality using the is equal relational operator, it gives us true. You would assume that this is because both of them are pointing to the string hello. Next, I try to repeat this operation, but this time I create two string objects using the new keyword. Both of the strings, s3 and s4, are pointing at CS1440 string. However, when I try to check if they are equal, using the is equal operator, Java returns false. Why is this happening? We can see that the two string objects are identical, and yet Java returns false when we ask if they are equal. To understand why this is happening, we need to go back to our memory and see what is happening there. In our heap memory, there is a place that is called the string constant pool. This place holds string literals used in your program. So when you use the assignment statement to create a string object, what happens is that the string is actually stored in the string constant pool and not an actual independent string object. If you create a new string object that uses the same literal, to save space, Java will do something called interning, and it will make that new reference variable pointing to the same string literal in the string constant pool. This way, if you have 100 hello string literals in your code, all of them will be pointing at the same string literal in the memory. When we ask if s1 is equal to s2, what Java really compares are the addresses in the stack memory and not the string literal in the heap memory. That's why it returns true, because both s1 and s2 reference variables contain the same address pointing at the string hello. On the other hand, when you use the new keyword, what happens is that Java actually creates a completely new and independent string object in the memory. This object has its separate address, which is stored in the reference variable. If you repeat the same process to create another string object using the new keyword, another brand new string object will be created in the memory with a different memory location, even though both contain the string CS1440. And that's why when we ask if the string object s3 is equal to s4, what really happens is that Java compares the addresses in the stack memory. Since they are two different addresses, it returns false, even though the string object contents in the heap memory are identical. So as a rule of thumb, if you want to compare the contents of two string objects, you can't use the is equal sign. It will only work if you are trying to compare the addresses of the objects in the memory. Alright, then how do we compare the contents of the strings and not the memory addresses? Java provides two methods to do that. The first is called the equals method. The equals method is an instance method for any object in Java, including the string objects. When you call the equals method for a string object, you need to pass the other string object to be compared to. Let's try the previous example using the equals method. We can call the equals instance method of the string reference by s3 and pass the reference variable s4 as an argument. Both references contain different memory locations, but each is pointing at the string object containing the string CS1440. Therefore, the equals method returns true. On the other hand, if we create two new string objects containing cab and cat, the equals method will return false since they are not the same. Java provides another string comparison method called the compareTo method. The compareTo method compares the ordinal values of the strings. This means it can indicate if a string is greater than, equal to, or less than another string object. The method compares the characters of the strings until it finds the first two different characters. Since these two characters have equivalent ordinal code, Java will return the difference between them. If the string object that calls the compareTo method is less than the other string, compareTo will return a negative integer. If the two strings are identical, Java will return 0. If the string that calls the compareTo method is greater than the other string, it will return a positive integer. Let's take an example to understand how compareTo works. We initialize two string objects, both have the string hello. Java will compare the two strings and return 0 since there is no difference between them. Let's take another example, but this time the two strings are different in the last letter. What Java will do is to compare the two strings character by character until it finds the first two different characters. In this case, Java will compare the two characters B and T. Since T is 116 and B is 98, the difference between them is 18. If you compare the cap to cat, the B's value is less than the T's value by 18, and that's why Java will return negative 18. If you compare the cat to cap, however, the difference will be positive 18 since the T is higher than B by 18. So keep in mind, equals method evaluates to true or false. If you use the logical NOT, it will be checking for not equal. The compareTo returns an integer, and this means that if you want to turn it into logical true or false, you have to put the method's output in a relational expression where you ask if the result is equal to 0, positive, or negative. Java also provides two additional methods to compare strings without considering the casing, named equals ignore case and compareTo ignore case.